Hi, my name is Amber and this is my January wrap-up. So thanks to a readathon and the fact that one of my resolutions was to read more manga and graphic novels, I actually ended up reading 12 books this month, which is incredible, and I hope that's a good start for the rest of the year and that I will just continue to read that many. So the first book that I read this month was Unite Me by Tahereh Mafi. This is a bind-up of Destroy Me and Fracture Me, which are two novellas from the Shatter Me series, one from Warner's point of view and one from Adam's. I really enjoyed Warner's story. Adam's wasn't terrible, it just wasn't what I was hoping it would be. It kind of made me not like his character a little bit more than I already did. But I really enjoyed Warner's. I thought that was a great perspective into his side of things. If I'm not mistaken, it takes place after the first book, but I really enjoyed both of them and I cannot wait to continue on with the series more when Restore Me comes out. I just love this series and these characters so incredibly much, so I definitely ended up giving this 5 stars. The next book I picked up this month was Soundless by Rochelle Mead. I had no plan to read this month, but I randomly found it in the clearance section of my half price for about $2 in brand new condition, so I went ahead and got it, and I ended up reading through it this month and really enjoyed it. It was my first book I've ever read from Rochelle Mead and I really enjoyed her writing and the storytelling, so I definitely want to try and pick up more of her books. Our main character lives in a village where everyone has lost their hearing, and eventually everybody is starting to lose their sight as well until our main character wakes up one night with the ability to hear again. She then takes it upon herself to try and figure out what's going on with her town and try to fix things and help everyone, and it is just really interesting and unique. I really enjoyed these characters as well. They were strong and fun and just, you really felt for this town. It definitely took a really weird turn at the end. I didn't expect what happened to happen, and I ended up giving it 4 stars. Now, like I said, I've been trying to read more manga and graphic novels this year. So the first manga that I picked up this year was volume 1 of Siren. This was another one that was just in a clearance section at half price that was in really good condition and sounded interesting, so I picked it up. I had never heard of this before until that trip, and I'm so glad I picked it up because I ended up absolutely adoring this. It's hard to kind of describe what it's about. Basically, you get this card from a society called Siren, and then you answer questions on a phone booth and it takes you to this other dimension where you have to basically fight for your life. Really confusing and very strange, and people are going missing, and I'm probably explaining this horribly, but I ended up giving it 5 stars. The next book I read this month was an e-arc of Zenith by Lindsay Cummings and Sasha Alsberg. This came out this month and I was lucky enough to receive an e-arc through NetGalley, and I really enjoyed this one. While there are moments where I felt like it was a little too long, there were just chunks where I could easily see it just being taken out of the book and I would have never missed it. Besides that, overall I still really enjoyed this, especially the characters. I think the characters were fantastic, but I ended up giving it 4 stars. The next book that I read this month was Lamberth Lost by Zoraida Cordova. I feel so bad for the fact that I did not enjoy this book as much as I was really hoping I would, but I just didn't like it much at all. It had its good moments, it definitely had its intriguing moments where I wanted to keep reading and where I was enjoying what the characters were doing, but then there were just moments that felt so strange and weird and just jumbled up, and the relationships felt really odd and kind of forced and random. I really had to force myself to pick it up and read it and get through it, and I hate when I have to do that with books. But if you don't know, this is about our main character who is part of a family of witches, but she hates magic. So one day she decides she's going to try and rid herself of magic, but the spell backfires and her entire family goes missing. Did not enjoy it as much as I was hoping, and I did end up giving it 2 stars. I decided to pick up a few graphic novels, the first being Grim Leaper. I had originally read some of this, if not all of it, years back I think when it came out, but I didn't remember anything about it and I didn't remember if I ever finished it, so I decided to pick it up again and read through it this month, and I am so glad I did because I really enjoyed it. Basically, our main character has died, and then every time he wakes back up he is in a different person's body and they die, and then he has to do it all over again until he meets a girl that is going through the same exact thing and they fall in love. And it definitely has a lot of blood and gore in it, but it's in such a good way. Really enjoyed it. It has a lot of adorable, funny moments, so I ended up giving this 5 stars. The next graphic novel that I picked up this month was volume 1 of the Umbrella Academy. This is one that I'm sure everyone has seen about. Even if you don't read graphic novels, this is just one that everybody knows. I had never read it. I knew nothing about what it was about, so I decided to randomly pick it up this month, and I did really enjoy it. Thought the concept was really interesting. I thought the characters were really intriguing, and I liked hearing their backstory. stories and how things are playing out with them. I definitely think I'll continue on with this, so I ended up giving volume 1 at 4 stars. Next, I ended up picking up The Hazelwood by Melissa Albert. I was lucky enough to receive an e-arc of this through NetGalley as well this month. All the rest of the books that I have for this month I actually read thanks to a readathon, which I have a vlog for, which I will have a link down below if you want to check that out. I ended up finishing The Hazelwood really quickly and really enjoyed it a lot. It's definitely as creepy and dark and strange and weird and not what you expect, just like everyone is saying it is. And while I felt there were certain moments that just were kind of lacking, mainly towards the end, but I did really enjoy it. If you don't know, this is about our main character who has had to run her entire life and move different places because of bad luck that follows her and her mother. At least that's what it seems. Her grandmother used to be a writer for fairy tales, a really popular one, but she's never actually met her. One day her mother goes missing and she has to kind of take these stories and use them as a way to figure out where her mother is, but I ended up giving it 4 stars. Finally, I ended up picking up The Darkest Part of the Forest by Holly Black. This is one that's been sitting on my shelves for years now, I think. I kept putting it in my TBRs, but never actually picking up and reading it. This month I finally did that thanks to this readathon and I got through it. I actually ended up listening to most of the audiobook. While I don't think it was absolutely fantastic, I thought it was a lot of fun and a really interesting take on fairies. I really like the idea that this is just a town that has fairies in it. Everybody seems to know about, and it's become kind of like a tourist trap, even though dangerous things happen to all the tourists all the time. I think that's a really unique take on this. I ended up giving this 4 stars. The next book I picked up this month was The Fill-In Boyfriend by Casey West. Flew through this in no time at all. Loved every second of it. I thought it was adorable. Basically what happens is our main character gets dumped on her night of prom from her boyfriend, who some of her friends don't believe actually exists because they've been in a long distance relationship. She ends up finding a guy randomly sitting there and asks him to fake be her date for prom. Really cute and really adorable and a ton of fun. This definitely ended up being one of my favorites from Casey West. I loved the growth of the main character because you kind of can't stand her a little bit in the beginning, and she really grows throughout the story, and I loved that. Really enjoyed this and definitely ended up giving it 5 stars. The last books that I read this month were volume 1 and 2 of Vampire Knight. Absolutely adored these, of course. I've watched the anime multiple times and enjoyed it, but I had never read the manga and decided to actually pick these up this month, and I cannot wait to continue on with it even though I know what's happening. I really enjoyed these, and I ended up giving these both 5 stars. Carno, quit squeaking.